Be advised, suspect is armed and considered extremely dangerous.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. David Perrodin from down here in the historic North Star recording studio. And today we do have the Shure microphone out. So actually I think I need to kind of reconfigure this setup a little bit. So, all right. What I'm doing is just testing the audio with this setup because I haven't had the audio through this mic for a while. I've been using the headset and played that back. I thought it was great, to be honest with you. So let me see. I need to change the camera setting a little bit. I need to do this, or this, I suppose. I just trying to get my head into the image a little bit more. So, oh, there we go. Oh, I don't have the app fully over. And yeah, I don't know. I can live with that. I think that's pretty good. So, when I hop between programs, what happens is, I have to reset the camera. So, but I want to just make sure the Shure microphone is sounding fine today. So, I do have all of the lighting, everything on. I can see when I use this versus the headset, I get a little bit of shadowing, and that's where over here if I was doing like a presentation or something, I would pull up some other LED portable diffuse lighting that I have, but it's not that big of a deal now. And I don't think it looks out of place or anything like that. So what has been going on? First of all, if you're out there, my subscribers have dropped. So now I'm under 1,280. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe back. That would be appreciated. So, please subscribe. So yeah, I think once I said I was getting rid of the safetyphd.com, then people kind of jumped ship on the channel, which I kind of get, although I hadn't been producing content for the channel in 2 years. But yeah, so it said hey, you lost 4 subscribers. I'm like, well, I can't afford to do that. So a few things today. It was hot, not as humid. And I'm starting to find, first of all, August is just going by too fast. I'm really having kind of a hard time, just reconciling that tomorrow will be the 9th, and because in Wisconsin, again, the winters roll around. It's not my favorite time, so kind of the weeks of the hot weather are winding down. But today was probably upper 80s, and I checked out the subdivision. The work that's been going on there. So it's because it's a large subdivision, when you go down there and there's a trail system now put in, there's a lot of activity going on, but a lot of the sidewalks are poured and the roads and stuff like that. So like you can just go down and kind of check things out, and you're not in anybody's way. Um, so, and I do like this sub. Well, I like the walk that I'm able to do now with this subdivision, because this is a new area, and otherwise I have to cross a pretty busy street, which obviously I can do, but I have to do that twice to get, once to kind of get out on my walk and once to get back. If I walk up by the airport, and then that's just more active in that area too. So like walking down toward the subdivision, part of it is like a few parts are on trails. So, it's a little bit more quiet, and so there's certain days I just kind of prefer that, especially if I'm like talking to myself, the Socratic method of just talking through things. Then I prefer to do that. So, but I made a few changes. Well, I ordered a small clock, although the numbers are 2 inches. It's green. It's actually pretty neat because it's a USB-A to USB-A connection clock. So basically, the USB-A then has a little wall plug. So, and I do have an outlet in back, so it wouldn't interfere with like the desktop. So, meaning like it always has to be plugged into the wall. It does have a battery backup, but I was going to go with a battery one that I found, but then I was going into the reviews more, and some people were like, yeah, like after 3 months I had to change out the batteries. I think it takes like 4A batteries. And I'm like, well, this thing's like $16. And if I got to put in, AA batteries, like 4 of them, like 3 times a year, I mean, batteries are expensive. So that's just not going to work. But for what I need this to do, it should be very nice. And I did get the green LEDs. It was green, white, red, or orange. I don't know who would get orange. White was kind of like my second choice. I didn't want to go red because I just that's actually the color on my alarm clock in the bedroom. So I didn't want like that red look. So I think green will be nice. And it kind of plays a little bit off the desk too. But anyway, I'm looking to my right. I have a place I can put it here, or I have a place in front on my left. And it comes with a 4-foot USB-A to USB-A cord. So the USB-A plugs into the back of it, and then it plugs into a little charger, or a little prong that plugs into the outlet. And ironically, I have extra USB-A male to female cords that I never used. And so I was checking, I'm like, well, I can use one of those, and I can put this thing anywhere I want on my desk. That won't be a problem, like, because the cord length will be sufficient. So I am thinking more that I am going to put it's 5 inches long, like just in front, underneath the main monitor, right flush on the desk. So I think that'll be the easiest thing. It'll always be in view, because over anything on the right, like right now, if I use the microphone, I have to kind of look through the microphone to see what's happening over here, where this will be good. And most of the stuff I'm going to be doing, I mean, people wouldn't notice if you're glancing off. So one of the things I did today was I had downloaded the app 11O'Clock for Windows 11. So, but what it is it just changes your in your taskbar on the right hand side, your clock, because in Windows 11 the clock is pretty small and you can't adjust the size of it. So for me, that really wasn't working out very well. So I was checking out in this app, seemed pretty popular and well reviewed. So I downloaded it, and now it's And it is an improvement. I went with a larger Lucida Sans font. The only thing is this might change when the computer restarts, but it's like in the middle of my icons in the icon tray. It's not like all the way to the right. And when I manually, like, it does allow you to go in and try to like move it around. It would push everything else that was to the right, like onto the next screen. So it just was doing some weird stuff. So I think like a restart, but basically like it just accomplished what I needed it to do. And what that was just a bigger clock. So, yeah, I think that's going to work out pretty good. So I wish the taskbar could be larger in Windows 11. I don't think in Windows 10 it was an option either to go in and change it, like, because I've been reading like different tutorials of how to go into like taskbar settings, and I just went in there right now. And I don't see where you can make the taskbar larger, although like I've seen like in ChatGPT, it'll say like, do this to make the taskbar. I'm like, yeah, that's not an option. So, but anyway, so I don't know if anybody's watching. Nobody's posted yet. Tomorrow we are in store for severe weather between 12 and 5. So it was supposed to be later in the day, like between 2 and 8. But it's moving faster as it's developing here. So noon to 5. And that's a little bit unusual to have that. And then the temperatures will drop somewhat, kind of back down to like 80. Hey, it's Andrew. Look at this guy. So then we'll be like 80 instead of like 88 to 90. So yeah, we're supposed to, kind of be in store for about 5 hours of high winds, potential hail, which I always hate when they say that because, as a homeowner, to have hail, hit your house, and that can be just an incredible headache to have to deal with the roof and siding, and I have steel siding, and somebody's like, oh God, please no. And of course, a potential tornado, and we're under a flood watch, although like said like up to 3 inches of rain. Well, we haven't had rain for quite a while. So I don't think 3 inches of rain is going to cause any flooding. And we have sandy soil. I mean, so it's like, I've been here when we did have flooding, when we had like a foot to 15 inches of rain, like in 2 days. I think it was like 2008 maybe, and I also live on top of a hill, but anyway, so that's the deal is, we have severe weather rolling through tomorrow. But it does look then, so the lawn had gone pretty much dormant. I mean, a little bit of growing, and there was some areas that I had planted, and I had just kept those with a sprinkling can, kind of damp, so those wouldn't go dormant. But this will keep things from going dormant. So not that that's a big of a deal. So I was going through, and I didn't realize that Honda has stopped making gas lawnmowers as of 2023. So that's kind of I don't have a Honda mower, but I mean, I had considered Honda. So yeah, I didn't realize that Honda, all of the mowers are now electric. So kind of a big downer. Again, thankfully I don't own a Honda mower, because like if you had a Honda gas mower, you have to think your time's limited on how long that's going to be supported, even though there'll be a number of those out there. But I am not ready to cross over into the electric world. Like my neighbor has like the electric string trimmer, and I have my gas string trimmer, which is significantly more powerful and then the little leaf blower where I've got my big Echo. But anyway, is the Armor Ghost. So we need more subs to the channel just to kind of stay at the 1280. We've fallen below that. So after like 2 years, now the channel's losing. So we've got to bring people back. What's the experience with AI? It's more like a good search engine. Good question. I think it is kind of becoming like to me, a default search engine. What I've used AI for is to tune up things that I'll write. So I'll just be, it's like I'll create it, but then I'll be like, make this better. And I think that's when I was talking about AI on the Jim Mallard show a couple of years ago and how I thought it would impact like schools, for example. Like a piece of hair here, but I said I think for a while, like everybody's writing is going to get really good, and everything is going to be curated and like very organized, but it's not going to be original. It's just going to be. So the way that I use it is just basically as an editor, So being a publisher and working with editors to go through and AI was helpful when I was looking for that app of the system tray clock, to type in ChatGPT and say, hey, like, here's what I'm trying to do. What are some apps that are out there? And it gave 3, and I knew one of them. And then so I did a little more research and found whatever, the one that I'm using, ElevenOclock, which is fine. Like it's just an app to make the clock bigger, and I can change the color and the font. But then it's not very good for like research. Like I would never use it for that because I have found it to be very unreliable, even with my own content. I had one thing in the last week where I was saying like, I threw in some math. I had like a number and said, okay, like if I were to basically like a retirement question is what I threw at it. I'm like, if I have this amount of money and I'm going to take out this amount every month starting in this year, like what would it need to earn as an APY for me to do that and have it last at least 40 years? And it came up with this high number. And I knew that everything I had worked out in the past was nowhere near that number. So then I paused and I brought up just a calculator on the other screen and was going through and doing some of my own math. And I'm like, I went back into ChatGPT and I was like, I think you're way off. Like, here's the number. I think that would be much closer. And then it, of course, it's like, well, yeah, I used the wrong number or the wrong approach to this. And then it like recalculated and it was like within 0.02 of like what I had put in. So I would say if you're putting your retirement in the hands of ChatGPT, that's a pretty dangerous move. But yeah, I mean, it just is ubiquitous. I mean, I think these school districts that are trying to come out and like ban the use of AI, it's just not going to work because AI is so quickly embedded into everything and will just continue to be embedded. So, it's just the way that it is. Look at this. Orange soda gave you a lemon lime. That's disheartening. So yeah, I mean, post in the comments if you've had experience or, what people are thinking. So look at this. It's our good friend, the Uke. Wow. So, so I don't know what what schools are going to do with AI. Again, they're way behind the curve on this. And so you have the whole part of it, AI, which will be like instruction based. Will you allow students to use, because I mean, for schools to think they're going to monitor the use of AI, unless it's pretty blatant, I don't think they're going to be able to detect AI. Like, I think the students will always be kind of one step ahead on that. But on the other hand, is like it could force you into some much more creative teaching, and then like more rubric based projects. So, imagine a classroom where you have an assignment and you have three ways to complete it. One is like a paper, one is like to do a video, and one is like to do a demonstration. Okay, but then when you use that option, whatever one of those three options, the next time you have an assignment, you have to use one of the two remaining options, right? So, and I think students would kind of jump at that, like to be able to like create a video to demonstrate whatever, knowledge. So, I don't know. I don't think it's, but schools and boards are going to get all wonky on this. And then you have the whole safety side of it, which will be like AI deepfakes and stuff like that nobody is ready for. And I talked about that back in 2019 in my PBS presentation. So, I just don't, I do not know. So yeah, I don't know. Yuka's saying, I play that guitar. I can't play that. I cannot play that guitar, but that was my godfather's guitar. So, it's Zippy. Look at this guy. So it is Zippy and AI. One of the things I've noticed with AI too is I used to go in when it was kind of newer, and I would type like, hey, what do you know about the velocity of information? So the books or School of Airs, right? Even I wrote them. And a few times it would pull, it would just pull like summaries that were out there. But other times it would pull quotes, and these weren't from the book. And then it would be like, here's whatever that, Dr. Proden wrote. And I would like respond back and say, well, I actually wrote the book, and I know that is not in the book. And then it would say, oh, like I am conflating like this whatever on safety with like your book. And I'm like, yeah, don't do that again. And then I've also seen it do stuff where it'll bring back something that I've suggested as like its own idea, like it came up with it. And here's an example. So as I was working on this office chair, I have some, I don't know what it's called, something Bond. But anyway, it's a liquid agent that you put on a screw head, and it increases your by 7-fold that the screw head will not strip out. I don't know if it's called Tight Bond or whatever the liquid is, but and then because I was saying like, how do you get the arms off of these things when they won't come off? And then also the arms on this chair are kind of unique because it's just not easy to, there's a sliding plate. So anyway, I was talking to like Hone, the manufacturer, and they don't make these anymore. And they're like, yeah, it's probably just have to find some way to work around it, put a cover, which I'm going to do, and just kind of deal with it. But when I went back into ChatGPT, it threw this like plan out of like how somebody could approach it, and it used all the ideas that I had used. And I was kind of like, hey, like you didn't know that. It has a big problem with reporting what you say. It doesn't know how to have a conversation. So yeah, it's there are some times, yeah, I'm still using the same chair. So as I said, I went I went place to place chair shopping last year in Madison, Wisconsin, and I never found a chair that I like better than this one. So I'm just going to keep this one going. And as I said, I'm not using the office kind of as much as I used to, but yeah, as a trap. Yeah, I think so. It reinforces the biases. I found that too because I put in something about um I don't know. I'd have to if it was something. I think it was one of the car waxes that I use, and then I started because I'm like, I like to use this car wax. Like, is there anything like reviews or similar, or like what? And then it would kind of, it would just reinforce like it's a great decision that you're doing this and whatever. Um, and also, like when I would go in and look for the clock, which I was doing. No, when I was doing armrest, right, for the chair, it would be like, this is an awesome. It would just read like whatever the statements were, and then I'd be like, hey, like this thing has a 4.2 rating on Amazon, and like a lot of people are saying like this about it. And then it'd be like, I don't have access to all of those, and I'd be like, versus this other one which is 4.7, and like has 3,000 reviews, and um, so, but if you're asking like why it's a good idea to like go to like the state park on vacation or whatever, it will tell you why. It won't tell you the cons of it. Like it gets really busy during whatever time of year. I noticed too, like maybe when I was using AI more in its infancy, I would have to tell it to kind of knock it off to like, I don't want the negatives. So, like if I'm if I'm looking and asking specific questions about again like armchair covers or that, like I don't need a pros cons. I just kind of need a pros and I can take it from there. So, that was one thing too. But yeah, it is confirmation bias definitely. People have been messing with AI for years. So, oh God, just wait. There we go. I was just screwed something up, but it's okay now. I do not know what is going on there, Yuke. Sorry. If there's one positive thing we can gain from using AI, it's sort of forcing people to improve their syntax and descriptive abilities. Yes, you're right on, buddy. So when I was working with a school district last year, I was telling them, well, I think it was teaching a class actually, and we were writing a policy for AI, but then like what your objectives would be of what you'd expect from AI. And again, if you had a student with a disability and they had a hard time with writing, right? They could get the general ideas down, but yeah, the syntax and the descriptions, you could write goals. And I was saying, like, what if you had a student who was trying to describe an image, and then you went into image generators, through like Grok or something, and the image would be like, create my name made out of snow, and a whole bunch of kids in 5th grade like celebrating this like giant snow sculpture that is my name. And then so you'd go in and whatever, so you'd want to see this image, and then it'd be like, is that what you thought? And it could be like, yes or no, and then you could like go in and say like, well, what do you want changed? I want everybody to be happy, or it looks like these kids are like older than like whatever that I've been asking, or I want it to be snowing, or so anyway, I think there are a lot of ways that it can improve it's just like search engines when they were new. I remember teaching when search engines were a new thing, right? So, back in the late 90s, and the school district I was with, um, one of the classes, I think it was at a middle school level, was to teach students how to search in Yahoo. It wasn't Google at that time, it was how to search in Yahoo. So, how to search for, yeah, like a place to visit or like a product or something. So, what to type in. But I remember that, um, that was of how to use search engines, right? So I think it's kind of going to it'll be similar with AI, that you'll have classes evolve hopefully in these school districts where they'll have a class on how to use AI, right? Um, but anyway, so it's funny because I will call out, you know, AI or Twitter. Um, and then it's always like real apologetic. Be like, who told you that? Be like, Andrew. It's like, you gotta be Ask Jeeves. I remember Ask Jeeves. So, um, yeah. So I don't know what, I do know that schools are way behind on how they're going to approach this. So, and again, there's two sides. It's the instruction side, and then it's the school safety side. And I think both of those have the potential to go off the rails pretty fast. But I've appreciated, ChatGPT. I mean, if we go back and look at what technology has brought us, like YouTube, going into YouTube to look for reviews. When I got the EPOS headset, I watched probably five pretty thorough reviews, and then read through the comments. And I think I even like posted a question in one of them, but I was like, okay, like here was someone who's using it, the headset for, like teaching, kind of like similar to what I'll do for the university stuff. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed to see. And then also when I was having difficulty with the HyperX Cloud 3, the mics, I'd go in and then, I was finding some reviews where people are having the same issue. They're like, here's 5 microphones, and then here's the lowest mic gain, and this is it. I'd be like, okay. Or if you need, I remember I had to change out a headlight in my older Buick LaCrosse, and I watched a video of how to do that. So that was, and it got me through. So, but yeah. So I have ads playing. That's weird. Yeah, I think I enabled the ads thing. This website is monetized, and so I'll have to check that I don't. It should be set so when it's done, the ads will go, not mid roll. But apparently, I had it set for mid roll. Just just so you know, like the channel, I think made like 47 cents in the last month. I've only been paid out once from YouTube, but I figure, well, if it exists out there and somebody plays it back, over time, why not? But it's, yeah, but there's nothing I can kind of do with it now. I guess it's doing some mid-roll ads. So, yeah, machines will think for them. Yeah, I don't know. There are schools in my area that are banning cell phones during instructional time. So we'll see how that goes. I can understand the argument for it. I also think, boy, I think you open up some liabilities when you take that step as a district. Again, I just think we are so embedded in cell phones and social media but let's say cell phones. So the cell phone now is your map. The cell phone, obviously is your phone, but it's telling you about that and severe weather and navigation, and I mean all of this is integrated. Um, and these are things that I think are phenomenal, right? Like God, um, I remember when I got my Garmin, which the GPS, and I had my little Garmin, and it was awesome because like I was taking um, classes in my doctoral program down in Madison, and like to me, Madison is a pretty big area, and I wasn't fully knowledgeable of like driving around beyond campus, especially you're getting out of there at night in a class and stuff like that. So not ChatGPT, Garmin really changed that experience for me. So like if I would take a wrong turn or something, like I just knew like it would get me back to like where I would need to go. You just click the home button, and so I'm like, wow, this was really awesome. Um, I remember, taking trips on spring break in college where, we had the big plat, not plat book, but big maps. You know, and you'd go in and you'd be, trying to match up the highways and just, okay, we're in this town. So we know like coming up should be this town. And so, yeah, I think I think it's pretty cool. Actually, I really like my Samsung S25 Ultra, as I think I've shared before, but um, I don't game on that, but it is our primary family camera. We don't have a point and shoot, so that has a very nice camera on it, and it really has done a super job with like interior photos. So to not have the extra device of a camera and to actually, have it immediately like just put it into Dropbox and then periodically, take them and put them on the CDs and then redundant hard drives and stuff like that. But it's really cool. It's really cool. So, yeah. So what was I? Oh, so yeah, I have a few things that are coming into the studio here. One is the new arm rest. Well, so the arm rest, I guess, will stay because these are not coming off the chair, but then the ones that will come over top. So one of the reviews was a gamer who got these for his gaming chair, and he posted the review like 3 years ago, and he was very positive in this like 9-minute review, and and his chair was similar, like because mine's arms slide forward and back and side to side, and he posted an update 3 months ago and said still have the same set, still everything's working fine. And I'm like, good. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So you're talking about here chip implants. So one of the things I did last year in the fall class I was teaching, and I'm not teaching this fall, but one of the things I did in the fall legal class was I had a scenario where a student comes to the district with, severe needs and also has a seizure disorder. And the student then has a robotic dog with them. And the robotic dog is also paired up to a vest that the student wears, which is giving biofeedback to this device, right? And so the whole thought is that it can identify when the child is likely going to have a seizure, or if not, it is going to be taking data so the researchers will be able to analyze and kind of try to find the precursors, right? So the thing is, like, that was actually happening. There was a university that was doing that, and so when I was sharing that out, of this isn't a hypothetical, this is actually authentic. And it was then, what do you do as a school? How do you approach this? Because I think this will be pretty common over the next 5 years. Like the movie I, Robot. I think there are a lot of things in the movie I, Robot. Remember 20 years ago with Will Smith, more than 20, but like I think that world will kind of be a world that we'll be stepping into before long. I think that movie kind of nailed it pretty close, I would say. I would think the robots are going to be much more humanoid than in an iRobot. But anyway, what do you do when a student comes in and they have this service dog or service robot with them? So then, would you allow it to access your internet so it can access Wi-Fi and what is liability if this thing has a camera on it and it's recording your school setting? And what if it can be hacked, right? And where is this information going that it's taking? What if it makes a decision that puts the student at risk, right? So all of these things that have to come into place. So the case where this was happening, I forget like the district, it wasn't in Wisconsin, but it was a university team that had, again, developed this device, this, let's say, robot dog to be with the student, and the student would wear this vest. The student was pretty compromised. And then it was taking different measurements and whatever, but then there would be certain times the robot would position itself to support the student, or it would alert other people if something was going on, that the student might be approaching a seizure. But yeah, I don't think that that's far off. I think so. So we put the scenario: what if this is your district, and a parent comes in and they have they've been working with a university or a company, and the company is funding this, and you have this device. Again, would you allow it? Then how would you integrate it? How would the security measures look? How would you understand what it's doing? How the data is being gathered? How is that benefiting you and your ability to serve the student? What happens if you say no? So I think that the curious part of that, and I was kind of reinforcing this with people, is I said, if you say no, first of all, the media will totally make you the bad guy. If the parent goes and, the university, and they're like, hey, we have this, and the child's been using it in other settings, and the school say no, and any excuse the school would have, which could be very valid, saying, we don't, with our security protocols and cybersecurity, we're unclear. We have to work through this. You'd have people on the board recalled. I mean, so I think it's just really, really crazy, but very potentially authentic case study. So I'm glad I'm out before that actually became a reality in school administration. But yeah, so, but that was authentic. So private institutions will say no. There are going to be many walls pop up in the future. So yeah, and Andrew, the thing is, I don't think it's going to happen now, but what if the Americans with Disabilities Act, or IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education Act, which is for students, neither of those is on deck for a overhaul, then that won't be happening anytime soon. But at some point, they will be overhauled, and there could be, that a student would have the right to, use a robot companion or something to that effect, if they have if it can offset something, that manifests by their disability. So, and I think someone was talking about it before in the chat here about, like neural implants, like that's going to be happening. So how do you work with that? How do you work with also, let's just say sports and students who are, um, might have some enhanced athletic ability because of, some potential genetic engineering that could happen and some CRISPR type thing. I mean, it sounds crazy now, but it's probably not that crazy of a discussion in 10 years. So again, when I teach students, Zippy gave $1. My God, thank you, buddy. Or is it $100? I think it's $100. Let me go ahead and change it. There, just change it to $100. So, wow. Hey, it wasn't a super chat, was it? Or was it just $1? Wow. Look at that. Look at this guy. So anyway, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to kind of go through that of what that means. So yeah, I don't know. But when I teach the students, right? So I'm at the point now where I'm old. So when I'm teaching, I'm like, so my students might be like 30 years old. And I'm like, you've got 30 years ahead of you in this profession, maybe. But, at least like 20 or 25. And, so the reality is these things are going to happen during your career. So like, you got to start thinking about how you're going to approach these things. Or when you go on job interviews, and a couple of my former students have been hired in administrative positions this fall. So I'm happy. I need to reach out to them and congratulate them. So, but, I told them, too, like when you're interviewing, if the opportunity presents itself of like, where do you see things going? I said, I certainly would bring up, not only AI, but, AI and robotics and the likelihood of needing policy and practices that, interface with this, and not that you approach it as a barrier, but that you're getting yourself educated and your board and being as aware as you can and acting in the best interest, because this is going to happen. So, yeah, it's pretty wild. So 10 years is a slippery slope, man. The conservatives of today, liberals, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. I was having a conversation with a friend about, money, right? Like just the money system, like what we have for money and the economy, and just the craziness of how the Dow Jones and NASDAQ are at record highs in the S&P. And I'm like, this is kind of like valuing things out of nothing. Yeah. And then, like Nvidia is worth like $4 trillion, like on paper. But I said, the other part is like, just look at cryptocurrency. I'm not against cryptocurrency. I'm just saying, like, look at cryptocurrency and NFTs. It's kind of like, artwork to some extent. And now just hear me out on this. Like, I think it is because so much money was put into the system during the pandemic, right? That, crypto is necessary to soak up some of that so you don't have this massive inflation and devaluation of dollars and fiat currencies. But I'm like, and NFTs, and I said it's kind of like what art was, like 100 years ago. So pieces of art were being made to, someone would do this, and then it would have a certain value associated to it, and then it would be a way to store wealth in this piece of art. So the piece of art itself couldn't be devalued because it would be benchmarked against its innate value of. So like if, currency went out of vogue, the Mona Lisa is still worth so much in, for example, gold or platinum or whatever. But I said, we're getting to this really weird part where currencies are just really just kind of strange to think about right now. And the way that inflation. Zippy, did you put another dollar in there? Holy smokes. This guy's going to be paying my armrest off here. So look at this. Wow. Well, thank you very much, Zippy. Look at that. It's super chatting like crazy. Everything is worthy only what someone is worth, what someone's willing to pay. So true, right? So my counter on that, you could be like, there will be things though. So I had a friend who had retired right before the pandemic, and she and her husband, he was a plumber and then started his own business, and they did very well. And when they retired, though, they had their retirement invested in stocks and bonds, and then of course a lot of just their regular finances were in the stock market. And she got a hold of me, and that was, the market was just drilling down right after the pandemic started. And so April of 2020, and she's like, we're losing just massive amounts of money. And like she said, I'm so I'm so nervous. Like I just, we're thinking about selling. And I'm like, well, I'm not your financial advisor. And she's like, I'll send you the whole portfolio we have if you want to look over it. I'm like, well, I can't do that. That's not my role. But I just said, just taking a step back, this is a black swan event. And all of these companies still have buildings and products that they make and things. So, I mean, there's innate things out there. They just didn't disappear. So, I said, I think you have to kind of look at that. For example, it's not like an asteroid had hit or a solar flare had taken out a big chunk of the grid and electronics. And here, realistically, we're going to have 10 years to rebuild, to kind of get back to that level. Yeah, that changes the game a little bit. But so Duke's saying they can. Zippy's like, nope. This one super chat, but I appreciate it. Yuke is saying they can freeze your accounts, drain them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the debanking, that is, to me, that's really scary to see that. I'll be, when I went and took safetyphd.com offline, I was also a little bit relieved by that because, anything that was still out there, there's two things that can happen. One is, people can take it out of context and spin it back against you. And professionally, that could impact maybe the stuff I do at the university. But the other part was the site would continually be scrolled. There's, the internet, and they would try to find things and try to do like a copyright challenge on content. So they'd be like, "Oh, this is somebody else's idea," and so like I had that experience a couple times. So even though, and then you have to kind of deal with that mess. But I am glad actually I don't have that public facing profile anymore. Um, and yeah, but one of the things Sayuk is when I interviewed Clay Martin, who wrote Concrete Jungle and several other books, um, former military intelligence. One of the things that Clay kind of reiterated, and I think we had it on the Safety Doc podcast when I interviewed him, but he said, just one word of advice in today's world: do not announce your affiliations. So, like, it could be even putting like your favorite sports team on a bumper sticker, put it on your car, right? Putting a yard sign up for a certain candidate. And then, he said, we just are in a society where something like that can spark where you come outside and your house has been spray painted, right? Um, you have no idea of the instability in people, right? In the population. I always think it's interesting. Scott Adams had talked about how, if you just think about it, like if you're going through your day, I use the example of like Jeffrey Dahmer, because I worked with somebody who worked with Jeffrey Dahmer when he was at the chocolate factory. And they said, like, how many times do you work next to somebody, or you're in a grocery store line and the person, in front of you, they're going through the motions, putting their stuff on the conveyor belt or whatever, but like they're also, like a cyber thief. So this is what they do when they're not, at the grocery store, right? Or, so everyone is just going through the routine, but you never know like the different movies that are going on in people's minds. And I think that is really interesting. But going back to what Clay was saying, is he said, just do not do that, because announce your affiliations. And he was also, like with your clothing, but especially like with your vehicles, stickers and signage in front of your house, and things that petitions you might sign that then later, they can be found in your name. And because you just do not know how people are going to react to that. And we know that people can go very outside the lines with their behavior. And again, I mean, for example, if you have a Tesla truck, I mean, you come outside and it's painted up and it's scratched and stuff like that. So, yeah, I am wearing Nike. Yeah, I am. So I didn't buy this new, but anyway, I am wearing Nike. So yeah, which is kind of strange because like, to me, like, I'm not like a Nike brand person. I'm just like, this is the nicest sleeveless shirt for me to wear in summer. Like, I have Adidas and some other ones, but I mean, so I actually buy these from a place in Minnesota that has an online presence, and they get these from like college and NFL teams. And sometimes like I have a few, like they have the player's name like iron on a tag in the back of it. So, but that's kind of interesting. You're right. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you got a Tesla, then you've got a $5 million house. Yeah. So, very interesting though. Andrew's saying, I got some positive reactions when I had a bumper sticker that said, if you can't feed them. Okay. Got it. Yeah. I mean, So that's one of the things with our vehicles, for example, and like the house. Like I don't put political signs out. We keep the vehicles pretty bland. Um, Nothing I take off like the dealership stuff, on it, like the plates they give you with the advertising and stuff. But so yeah, so like me walking around, this is a Nike shirt, but it doesn't say like Wisconsin on it. Um, so I don't really have a lot of like branded stuff, but yeah, it does have a logo of the manufacturer of the shirt. But um, and so I've very little kind of in that realm. Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. I tend to I like my American Giant hoodies. Like those are all just a solid color, and then they have the little American Giant, the tiny logo down at the bottom, but those are just a solid color. And like when I go to my daughter's basketball games in winter, I have a long sleeve white shirt that I wear under my solid black navy pea coat and jeans, and my Hoka shoes, which need to be cleaned. So, how's that local cheese? Where I grew up, we had a big cheese plant, still there. It's expanded significantly, but here in the city I'm in now, this isn't a cheese city. But again, I grew up. There's a huge cheese plant there, so that was always kind of interesting because they had a little retail part too, so you could get like cheese from the store. They don't have that part anymore. So yeah. So let's do the audio. How does this mic sound? Because I haven't used this mic yet on Windows 11 Pro. So, the headset has been a big success. So I'm feeling great about that. So I want to check this mic out, and sounds fine. Good. Yeah. Because I was having some issues. Thanks. You sounds fine. Zippy said, sounds terrific. Thanks. I was having some issues on Windows 10 Pro. It wasn't Windows 10 that was throwing me off. I had, so at the start of summer, I had my PC, my main drive, cloned. So I went from a SSD to an NVMe card drive, significantly faster. And then the issue with that, so there were, like I said, some ghosts in the machine that showed up. And I don't know how it happened. The tech person did it. He's been awesome. But it was one of these things that just seems to happen from time to time. And it only hit the audio drivers. So there were redundant drivers that were showing up. And then also it wasn't recognizing everything. And this mic also changed their app from Motive to something else. So I still use Motive, which is the old app, which isn't supported anymore. They have a new app, and the new app has really bad reviews. So again, like out of 500 reviews, like 200 were 1 star, and like 100 were, 2-star, just people saying it doesn't work. And so anyway, this mic at the start of summer was really giving me trouble when I was after that cloning, and I had to go in and discover that I had competing drivers. So that those were all cleaned up when the system I went in and was able to get most of that cleaned up. It was really weird to find them because like they shouldn't have existed. And then I went in, when the system was updated to Windows 11 Pro last week, then had the tech guy specifically go in and just reinstall and go with a full new set of audio drivers. And also we did all new graphics drivers. So, so everything's really good now, but it was so strange And then also my Google Drive wouldn't recognize the NVMe, the clone drive. So I'm sitting there and I'm doing things in Google Drive for, like a week. And then I would go in and they weren't syncing to the computer. So everything that I have on Drive is also on the PC. And I was like, well, what's going on? And I went in and it wasn't recognizing the clone drive. So I had to uninstall Google Drive and then I had to reinstall it. And I had to do that twice. And then it finally straightened itself out. And now everything's fine. And I had the same thing going on with Dropbox for like my photos from my phone. Something got weird with the NVMe drive, but, anyway, like that all got resolved. And I think Windows 11 Pro, I like it. I think it's a very good operating system. I think it's better than 10. It's more intuitive. It seems much faster. My GPU is much more efficient in Pro. So my graphics is being managed much better in this system. So I've been really happy with it. Yeah, there's some things like, you can't do much with the taskbar. And I have a Windows 7 clam. So I've got the shell I'm using because I just kind of prefer that. So it's kind of a trade-off. So like my Windows screen, so my taskbar looks kind of weird because like I said, the clock is larger and it's over top the icons in the taskbar, but I could just click and get in there to access that. I don't have to typically do much with that ever. So this all kind of stems too from like, I just need a better way in the studio to know what time it is and to have some redundancies built into that, because when I'm meeting with people or when I'm doing the university classes, and they're more online now. So if people are presenting, I've got my timer. So that's one thing, but then I have an analog clock, but that's not as precise. And then I lose the clock in the, so basically I have my phone. So I'm like, I have to come up with something else where I can just quickly identify the time, because you might have like 90 minutes. And during that 90 minutes, you're going to have 5 people present or something. So they have so much time to present. And then after like 3 present, you take like a 10-minute break and then you come back. And if you start to lose track of time, the whole class just starts to fall apart at the end, or basically you have someone and they're presenting, you're like, hey, can you do this like in 10 minutes instead of 15? So, which you don't ever want to do that as an instructor. So part of it was like, I just need a clock. And then I was able to find that today. So, which was good to bring down in the system, but then also, to have some redundancies, because this ElevenOclock app will allow you to put a clock on every screen, all 3 screens instead of just the main one. So that was one of the reasons to go in and to do that. So, wow, that sounds annoying. I haven't bought computer equipment since 2010-ish. I would not want to have any connectivity to the internet with my microphone or guitars or anything. So Yuka's saying, yeah. Yuka's like, I used to do vocals with a Shure. So look at me in the eyes. So terrific. All right, buddy. Cool. But does it come with solitaire hearts? And yeah. So it's kind of funny. I remember, like a month ago when I got my new phone, the S25 Ultra, the first night I was literally like just taking off apps. Like, Solitaire was one of them. Like, I'm just like taking off all of these apps that I'll never use. Because I just want that streamlined. it wasn't really a memory thing. It was just like I don't want all of these apps on the phone that come with it. So I have to watch because every time you do an upgrade, they usually try to sneak in a few more games. But I'm like, no. So yeah, I really like this mic. It does have an XLR input, but I don't have a mixer. I'm never going to do that. So as a straight up USB mic, I think this mic does a really good job. Again, for what I need. And if I'm ever recording anything for the university, then I usually go in and run it through Auphonic is a program I have, Leveler, which seems to work really well. And then in Camtasia and do a little audio engineering. But again, it's something like people listen to it one time and then that's it. So yeah, I don't know if I'd want to, I'm not going to like invest in any software or anything. You know, I got, what's the program? Let me move this. Adobe Photoshop. So I bought a Adobe Photoshop disc like 3 years ago that was, you know, for like Adobe Photoshop 2010 or whatever. And I put it on the machine and it was just too complicated for me to kind of usefully figure it out. I used to have a program I think called Photo Deluxe, which was awesome, but then it wasn't supported by Windows 10. But it's like I just don't do that anymore. And now, you know, it's kind of interesting because like on the phone, you just like encircle things and like remove backgrounds and people a lot of pictures. And but I don't really do much graphics stuff. So yeah. So dun, 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 dun. What is this? Sorry. Oh, okay. Wow. I'm not sure. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry for. So, oh, were you just saying with the mic and stuff? Oh, I got it. Yeah. So I don't know. I just, you know, there's like a threshold of knowledge I have with technology. And so like another thing I think that's kind of funny is, you know, like if you go into Chat GPT and then you ask a question about like how to make the taskbar bigger. And so it'll be like, well, if you go into the registry, you can do like these edits. And I'm like, whoa, no, buddy, I'm not going down that rabbit hole with you. I am not confident in that. So like, unless there's like a setting or something, do not give me a recipe to go in and to edit my machine registry and BIOS and stuff like that. So, because I've got things working pretty well down here and I'm not going to do that. So, but yeah, you know, I think the system has been working well. I really like the lighting, the Logitech lighting that I've added down here and the upgrades. And I feel good about running Windows 11 Pro. I didn't want to be dealing with this end of life for Windows 10, the updates, because now it seems like the deal is if you want to pay $30 to keep getting updates for a year, you have to have a Microsoft account to do that. So like I don't have a Microsoft account. So like when this machine turns on, I don't have to go in and log into Microsoft. I don't have OneDrive connected to this. All of my Word, PowerPoint are all physical disk from older versions. So those aren't connecting up to do a handshake with Microsoft where I have to log in. So yeah, I am, that was a big thing is I did not want to set up that. I don't have like the Samsung One account on my phone either. You know, I do have, you know, obviously I have Google Drive, but what I have on Google Drive is pretty selective. Like a lot of my university stuff is on Google Drive, just because then I can access it when I'm over at the university, which now the university's gone largely online in the program, so that's not as big of a deal. But yeah, as far as like anything that would be personal information, stuff like that, I don't put that on Drive. I mean, Drive just became the place to house, I mean, largely like several gigs of university stuff over the last 20 years. So do you have a vintage government issued coffee machine? I do not. So I haven't made coffee for a while, but we have a quick trip here that I could walk to it, but my coffee would be cold by the time I got home. But usually once kind of like consulting or teaching would start, I would just go there and grab a coffee and come back. The coffee cups are great for starting fires in my fireplace. So they always get repurposed in that way. So what is on deck for me is, so the office is totally set except for the things that'll be coming in, like the arm pads and the clock. But as far as like all the updates are done, the file cabinet, and I spent like 25 hours sorting all the files. Every drawer in back of me, everything has been gone through. So, and plus like this was thoroughly clean. It took an entire day to like just clean everything that is down here. So the next thing I need to do is to go into my furnace room, or it's a furnace room, shop, fireplace room, or firewood room, and go through. For example, like I have a big box of light bulbs, so I need to go through and figure out like what works, what doesn't, and then like if I have a 200 watt incandescent, I mean, and it works, and I'll just put it in the garage sale, probably in the free bin, because I'm not going to be putting that in anywhere. So I just need to kind of figure out, and I think I have stuff that probably isn't any good anymore. Like some weather stripping that's probably old that I would just like replace. So I need to go through that, and then that's kind of it. Like I have another room where I have some of the computer stuff stored, some boxes and things like that. And I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to tackle that right now. But I think I got a lot done this summer, like of things I wanted to accomplish. Last summer was, more or less working on the house and the garage. And so I don't know what next summer will be, but this summer was kind of getting a lot of this type of stuff in order. So very interesting. So I'm going to get going. It is 12:47 here. And again, we are in store for severe weather between 12 and 5, like could be that whole 5 hours tomorrow. And that early in the day, things could get pretty intense because you're obviously going to have a lot of heating going on with the sun versus like a storm that rolls in at night. So they are saying there's a possibility for damaging hail, which yikes, that is not good. Tornadoes, and we're under a flood watch. Could get 3 inches of rain, which again, I don't think would cause flooding in this area. We haven't had rain for a while. We have sandy soil, so 3 inches of rain isn't going to mess things up. And then we get back into a pattern of drier weather. But I am, the older I get, thankfully we don't have trees. We have one neighbor's tree, which is kind of close to our house in the far back, but we don't have the trees close to the house anymore. That's a relief, because once you have a tree fall on your house, then going forward, like after that happened, you don't want any trees close to your house. And it's the hail. And eventually when I replace the roof, I'm going to go with a metal roof, and I'm going to go with the metal roof that is going to be the most hail resistant option that I can put on this house. So we'll see what that is at the time, but I know that they do make, metal roofs, which are very hail resistant. I suppose nothing is perfect, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what I would do if the siding, because I have steel siding, if that was damaged with hail, because it would be cosmetically damaged, not functionally damaged. And you can't have that fixed. I checked into that because we had the neighbors threw some rocks at the side and had some dents on the side of where the garage is. And I was checking around, and like, you can't fix that. Like, I thought like car places where there's dents, like the same type of process would happen if you had steel siding. They could come in and remove the dents, and they're like, nope, can't do it. So I don't know, but I'm hoping we do not get the storms. God, the older I get, that's the thing. When I was a kid, what storms meant, big storms, is we had a high risk of our basement flooding. And that was, oh God, I hated that because we lived at the bottom of a hill, and yeah, the basement would fill up with water. My dad had a big pump, like a 200 gallon per minute pump on a skid that he would put outside, and then this hard suction hose he'd drop in the basement and be pumping this water out. And then, you had 2 sump pumps, but then if the power went out, those weren't any good. And those would kind of quickly be overwhelmed by the water coming in and through like the sump pits. And it's just horrible. Like that's one of the things, like, I absolutely am glad I'm not dealing with anymore, in living in a house on top of a sandy hill. There's no water coming in here. But God, that was just, and as a kid, like during the night, you'd hear the sump pumps, right? And you could kind of get a feel for what was going on. But then, dad would get up or he'd get the pumps out, and it was just a bad thing. So look at this guy. He's got a date tomorrow. All right. Got a date with a ghost. So was it Ghostbusters? Well, I am going to I have to get out and we have a flag in front of the house that attaches to the house. And during storms, like, the pole usually snaps. So I just need to get out tomorrow morning and bring that in the garage. But I don't know. We'll see. Well, everybody have a great night. If you are, hopefully you're still subscribed, maybe just check that, because the numbers have dropped a little bit. And thanks for the feedback on the mic. I appreciate it. I do want to do a few shows where, again, not really Safety Doc podcast, but kind of more, I have some topics that I want to get into. Like, one is that whole, I talked about this before, but it was like Warren Buffett said, never underestimate the person who overestimates themselves. And he was giving Elon Musk as the example. But I think that statement, we all interface with somebody who seems like they're overconfident, but it's not a Dunning effect, right? It's genuinely just a passion they have for something, and they want to bring it to fruition, whatever it might be. And sometimes by not raining on their parade and telling them it's not going to happen, it just happens. They just make it happen. And that's sometimes, I think, with the younger people, they're able to do things because society hasn't beat it out of them. You're not going to be able to do this. This isn't going to work out, or whatever. It's kind of like, when I moved here, I made doors for this house that we still use today, like doors. I made sliding drawers in my workshop, in the kitchen, in the garage, sliding drawers I made out of wood, only wood, and some paraffin wax, and they're perfect to this day. And like, just really great tolerances. Like, and I look back and I'm like, how in the hell did I do that? Like, reframe the garage, because when we moved in, the front was cedar and some of it had rotted out. But I mean, I look at some of the things that I built and I'm like, wow. I don't know if I could do that today. And I think part of the attitude was like, I just was like, well, I'm going to do this. Like, I can figure this out. I can do it. But that's always when I go into that shop area in the garage and like the stuff I built out there, I'm like, this is pretty amazing. I mean, this is, again, the fact that it is just built on, a little bit of paraffin and the tolerances and everything, and how good like these drawers pull out and close like completely flush. I'm pretty amazed. So I should just sign my name to that when we eventually move out of here. So, but all right, everybody, I am going to get on out of here. So have a good night. See how the weather is in the greater Madison, Wisconsin area tomorrow. Hopefully we don't make national news. So, all right. All right, everybody. We'll see ya.
Holy shit, a ghost.
Ooh.
Do you mind moving out of the way? You're blocking the TV.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man.
It's okay. Thank you.